Tony Will. I am back with another amazing episode of Women In, and I'm proud of myself because I'm actually using different words than amazing, which is great because I tend to use the same words. So I digress. But before we dive into my fabulous guest, let me tell you what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women and the individuals in their lives who are lifting them up. You're going to hear from an amazing individual in my life today. He's going to share his stories to inspire others to support all the extraordinary women around them. This is a space to be disruptive, forward-thinking, and change agents for humankind. It is uncensored, fun, and curiosity-driven. I often get asked what I'm passionate about, and I'm passionate about a lot of things, but this is usually at the top of the list, and it's breaking down barriers for my kids' generation. It's equal parts about my guests and the places we came into each other's lives, whether it be the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or my guests happen to be in my family and friends circle. Tim Knapp is my guest today, and for over 2 decades, Tim has dedicated himself to helping others overcome life's toughest challenges, including homelessness and incarceration. Before stepping into this calling, his journey took him through professional baseball and entrepreneurial ventures, experiences that deepened his understanding of resilience and transformation. Ultimately, coaching became his true passion, driven by a desire to make a meaningful impact on people's lives. Married for 36 years, Tim has navigated life from a small-town upbringing to streets of New York City and Nashville with his wife, 2 daughters, and a daughter-in-law, all passionately pursuing their own paths. He considers his life in a family of strong women one of his greatest opportunities for growth and learning. Tim understands struggle firsthand, from youthful indulgences to confronting personal battles with alcohol. He has gained profound insights that shape his life and coaching philosophy today. For him, it's not just about overcoming obstacles, it's about thriving, embracing possibility, and helping others do the same. I'm listening to the background noise. Hi, Tim.
It's not me, I promise you. It's not me. I turned my sound machine on.
It's definitely me, but I figured out a way how to do it. That's okay, because we can edit this stuff. So how are you?
I am doing well. It's great to be here.
It's so awesome for you to be here as well. And I've been looking forward to this conversation because we talked about doing this a while back.
Yeah.
And we're making it happen. So I always start with the same question, and then we kind of just jump off from there. But tell everyone how we met.
We met in Tampa. We were at a conference for This Naked Mind, and I don't know, second or third day, as par for the course, I think you and me both beat everyone else to the lunch line. And I think we were right in the front.
We were.
I was either behind you or in front of you. I don't know. But we sat down together and had lunch, started talking.
We did. And gosh, can you believe that was almost a year ago?
No, I cannot. But it was last April, I think. March. It was March. Oh my goodness.
It was. Wow. Yeah, and tomorrow is March 1st.
Yeah, we're there.
Yeah.
We are there.
So just for everyone that if they're listening to my podcast for the first time, they might be wondering, what is This Naked Mind? So why don't you tell everyone what This Naked Mind is and what it means to you?
I'll take a shot at it and you can fill in the holes. All right. This Naked Mind is an organization started by Annie Grace, who herself struggled with drinking for a long stretch, began to research the issue, wondering why she couldn't stop. What the heck's going on? Why does this have such a hold on me? Her research led her to a number of discoveries and information about alcohol that I believe changed her life. Mm-hmm. Long story short, she put her findings in a book, pre-published, had a lot of readership, and then came out with that book. And since then, I believe 7 or 8 years ago, something like that, she now, that book has been read over 1.1 million times. And then her constituency, her subscribers, has gone through the roof. I mean, to say she has approaching 2 million people tapping into her resources would be an understatement, I think. So that's This Naked Mind, with whom I became accredited as a coach. So there you go.
Yes. And we're both coaches. That was a great description. I couldn't have done it the justice you did. And you've been a coach now for a couple years?
Oh, no, just a year. I've officially, as a coach, working with people primarily in alcohol now. My work has extended to a number of different areas: shopping, sex, various things. We can talk about that or not. That's fine. But I have about 15 years prior to starting with this Naked Mind and alcohol coaching, working with the addicted, homeless, incarcerated, et cetera. So, about a lot of that work was with the incarcerated, but 99.9% of those that I worked with, either in or coming out of incarceration, had addiction history. So I've been around that block a few times.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, well, number one, I'm drawn to anyone who does this work, or when I say this work is whether they're part of this Naked Minds coaching program, or in the space of just being a non-drinker or sober curious. I'm always drawn to individuals like that. So the fact that we were both certified coaches with this Naked Mind, and then which drew me to you, and then what also drew me to you is your work specific to the niche you want to coach in, or you are coaching in. I've done work in, you mentioned a few, like incarcerated, homeless, the homeless population, and things of that nature. So talk about how you got involved in that. And I've talked a little bit about it on a different podcast with one of my fellow TED Talkers. He has a program here in Kalamazoo, or not a program, it's a business called Kalamazoo Defender. And he's a defense attorney. And we talked about this just a little bit. So I know with your work, we can expand on it specific to the substance abuse piece. So
Right.
yeah, how did you get involved, and
I
why are
did.
you passionate about it?
I did not see this coming. All right. I mean, I did not. My wife and I, uh, we got a little hungry to make a move, do something different. We were in very, very small town, rural Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma, and we took a trip to New York it was an anniversary trip. We hadn't been in a few years. I said, "Hey, let's go somewhere. We've got to do it this year." She said, "Let me get back to you. I'll tell you where I want to go." It was going to be within the continental U.S. I said, "Okay, yep, take your time." About a week later, she came back and said, "I know where I want to go. I want to go to New York City." And I said, "Is there anywhere else that you'd like to go?" I was thinking cabin in the woods, little fishing, maybe canoe. I don't know. I was thinking something like that, but I said, "Okay, we'll figure it out. Let's go." We went to New York City. We only spent about 5 days there, but believe it or not, we came home with the idea in mind to make a plan to move to New York City. We own a business together. We've operated since about 2000. It had gotten to a place, evolved to the place where we had a nice staff on the ground. We had people in place, and we were at a place in life where we could operate that remotely, make the move, and not have to work. So we went to New York City with our daughters 11 and 13. Our son had just gone to college, and that was part of the process. We're looking at our kids going, "Oh my goodness, they're going to be gone in a few years. We got to go do life with them somehow. What are we going to do?" And so that got us thinking. Then we thought about New York, and then we went to New York, and then we decided to move there. Within a few months, we had gotten rid of all our junk, packed up suitcases, grabbed a few books, and we moved to New York City. And it was bananas, and the adjustment was banana. It was crazy. But upon moving there, I just started volunteering. I was like, what can I do? What can I be a part of? What can I experiment with, try out? So I started, one of the early things I did was started volunteering at a men's residential shelter. It's called the Bowery Mission. I began working. I found within a few months, I was spending 20 hours a week there. It was nuts. I so loved the environment and working with guys, helping them get their GED, figure out, work related stuff. They were there homeless, without a broken past, without much of a future. And working with them, the guys were there for up to a year. I loved it. And they came to me within a few months of doing that and said, "Hey, we want you to go full time. We're getting another facility up in Harlem. We'd like for you to run the vocational training and educational part of those programs." And they talked me into it. And so that's how I got started, working with this demographic, with these people. And man, I loved it.
So back when you did that, what was your relationship like with alcohol?
At that time, it was mainly my wife and I tried to get away every couple of months, just time away by ourselves. And, we'd always buy a couple of bottles of wine. We'd go away for 3 or 4 nights, leave the kids at grandma's and get away. And we would drink when we went. That was mainly it. After about 10 years of doing that, I think I had begun to keep in the house, and so a few nights a week, we'd have a glass of wine or two,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So it was starting to creep up and increase prior to going to New York City.
Okay. And so at what point, so I guess since New York City to now, have you stayed working and volunteering or did you come in and out of that volunteerism in those communities?
So in New York
Or you
City,
moved in?
yeah. So in New York City, almost the whole time there, I mean, immediately I made friends with a couple of homeless guys, and got to know them, was spending time with them, and then I started volunteering. So right away, I jumped into that. So I continued that throughout my time in New York City. As I was leaving New York, our 2 girls had gone off to college, and we're like, let's make a change. We didn't come to New York to do it by ourselves. Let's change. And the business was doing fine. So there's a certain luxury to the groceries being bought, being paid for, and not having to be tied to a job. Such a privilege, but we were able to move. We decided to move to Nashville, and as soon as I hit the ground in Nashville, I started working with the incarcerated. I met a couple of people, had an organization working in prison, in the jail system here in the metro jails, and I started that immediately. And so it changed a bit. Not It wasn't the homeless, but it was incarcerated, whom many of them were homeless, and almost all with addiction history. So working in the jail and with guys coming out, it was a continuous stretch, of doing that work.
And you work predominantly with men? Is it just, or
Yeah, that's all I've done. I've just worked with men as far as that work. Um, my house, on the other hand, has been full of females all the way through, all the way through.
well, in your bio pointed to that. So,
Yeah, yeah. With 2 daughters and a wife, we came to Nashville, and with our middle kid, our older daughter being in college here, we immediately had all her friends coming over all the time. There was a point within just a year or two, I remember thinking, wow, there are 7 people with a key to our front door. And I think they were all girls. They were all young ladies. So they were here all the time.
yeah.
Some of them still come, and they don't knock. They just come in and they're like, "Hi, I wanted to get some lunch. You guys got anything in the fridge?" It's still happening. And those girls are now 27, 28, 29. So
Well, that says a lot about the type of household you and your wife have, right? Where it's
yeah,
warm and welcoming and friendly and non-intimidating, and
sure.
which doesn't surprise me because I mean, you clearly have a heart of servant leadership. And that doesn't, and that's not innate in a lot of people. And so what do you think fuels that? Is it the seeing these men, you know,
Tony, yeah, Tony, it's exposure. It's
yeah.
it's getting out in proximity with people from an entirely different place,
Hmm.
with people from an entirely different station, background, history, etc. I had never been, I had never met a homeless person, before I went to New York. I'd never had a conversation with a homeless person or a drug addict, either one. So it's getting in proximity with those people, spending time, rubbing shoulders with them, hearing their stories. That is life changing, and I would highly recommend anyone who's considering, um, hey, I was thinking about going down and serving meals at the local shelter. Do it, and ask questions, get to know people, because it is literally life changing. And that happened to me as soon as I hit New York. I remember being on our third floor apartment, looking out the door. There was a synagogue right across the street on West End Avenue, Upper West Side, and there were homeless guys that slept on the front steps every night. And I would wake up in the morning, see their cardboard laying there, and then eventually they'd come by and pick it up. And I I started going down and talking to them. It's like, hey, what's going on? Why are you here? What's up? How you doing? And it was that exposure with those people that changed me
Hmm.
and helped me to realize, oh, these are real people. These are more than real people. These guys have seen it all. Um, there was something very interesting about dealing with people who are so uniquely qualified to speak on so many things that I'd never even thought about. But those guys earned their educations, um, with life, with blood, with loss, with hardship, and mine was paid for, as it is. Just a very very different group of people to get to know and to rub shoulders with, and it changes you. It can't not change you, Tony.
Oh, I can imagine. What's one of the things that you've learned that really stuck out to you when you started to ask all those questions?
Some of the things that I learned. One of the first ones that struck me is I'm incredibly fortunate not to be in the same place.
Hmm.
If not for some of the events working out just the way they did, my life would have transpired a lot differently.
Hmm.
You know, those times in handcuffs that I didn't get thrown into jail, but had to wait outside for 20 minutes until somebody said, "Oh, I know your dad. Yeah, let's let this guy go." I got the breaks
Hmm.
that other people didn't get. And I didn't have to get those. I didn't earn them, deserve them, or see them coming. But if one of the first things that's striking me is my life could be incredibly similar, if not for just a few things happening differently. And so it's not my choices that make me that different. It's the outcomes of my choices not being what they could have been. And if you really let that sink in and you spend time around them and you realize how much pain somebody has had to endure because of their choices, which were very much like yours
Hmm.
at times. I mean, I experimented, explored, did everything under the sun, drug wise and substance wise. And how did, you know, to have done meth and X and I just the list goes on and on without ending up with some sort of addiction,
Hmm.
or arrest history that would have completely negated what I was able to go do. I'm very fortunate. And if we let that sink in, that ought to change us, right? When you
Yeah.
realize how things could have been. Anyway, I don't know if that answered your question, but
No, it does because I'm thinking about as you're sharing this, one of the things that, I mean, you work with men and here in this space, but here's the thing about the work you're doing. Like when we met last year
yeah,
in this naked mind,
right,
and you're a white male, but just in case people aren't watching this and are listening to it,
sure,
that you're a minority in those rooms. And it's not often that white men are minorities in many rooms, right?
you're
But
right.
in this space, you are. So A, did you notice that? And I just want you to know I always applaud that in any space, right? Because anyone can be a minority depending on what room they're sitting in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anyone can be. So, did you notice that? And did it deter you in any way to say or second guess yourself to say, "Oh gosh, there's hardly any men here. Am I in the right room?" Or did it fuel your fire more to say, "I'm going to keep doing this work"? Or tell me about that experience.
I think there have been times when I look at the room that I'm in. It is all men. They're all a different color, skin type, background, history, um, etc. And here I am, a very advantaged white guy, standing with them, talking to them about how to think, what to do, how to live, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember oftentimes, and occasionally the thought still creeps in: who gives you the right? What gives you the right to try to speak into the lives of these people? And I was always, every day, I was cognizant of the fact, wait a minute, these guys are just like me. I'm just like them. And it was showing up for them and showing up with them and not being afraid to call life what it is, not being able to call bullshit, bullshit, and not being afraid to say, God dang, that sucks, man. How the hell did you survive that? I don't know how you. I mean, that there there is something about holding the hand of somebody that's been through something really, really tough, and not. I I have been exposed to so much that wasn't really good as far as uh, restorative, reparative people trying to help, good natured people just trying to help, but going in and one example is beating them over the head with the Bible or the Scripture, or telling them to get their lives together, blaming, judging, etc. There's something about being authentic with people who are gonna be authentic with you. I get there's people that have been there and been down the road of hardship, genuine hardship of the worst kind. They don't bullshit, Tony.
Yeah.
They get it, and their meter for that is so sensitive that you can't be anything but real with them, or you don't get to stay in the room. They won't let you. And so it was the connection created by showing up and just continuing to love these guys and sit with them, that I just felt welcome,
Yeah.
and I learned some of the things about being with them that mattered. That one of the things that I did in New York, working in those shelters, was and being the head of those departments, was working with volunteers. I had huge volunteer staffs of people that wanted to come in and spend time tutoring, serving, working with the homeless, or the people that we sheltered, that we kept there. And some of their main questions were, wow, what do I say? What do I do? I'm so intimidated. How do I talk to these guys? And I would say, just ask them their story. Ask them what their drug of choice has been. Ask them about their arrest history. Those guys wore that stuff on their sleeve. They didn't have it. They didn't avoid talking about the hard stuff in their life. That's all they knew. We hide the hard stuff, avoid the hard stuff, dodge it, want to act like it's not there. And the fact is, even those of us who really appear to have it together don't.
Yeah.
We're just better at hiding it, or worse. I don't know what it is, but man, they get it. And it was being accepted and loved by them. And I guess somehow I conveyed love to them, in the process, and still try to do that way beyond judgment, before trying to tell them how to live, or how to think, or what to do, or what to be. I mean, it's, I don't, how do we get here?
Oh, well, no, it's about no, this is good about
That's
the
all.
minority piece, because here's the thing, like,
Ah,
what I love is that what you're doing is you're just having a conversation with them. And I'm sure there's a lot of people with, especially, well, both homeless and incarcerated, where people avoid talking to them, but you're just asking questions,
sure.
and you're not afraid to ask. So what I'm hearing is a high level of courage, and
But
courage.
it's informed courage, Tony. It's courage that comes from having been there, experienced it, been exposed to it, and realizing, oh, these guys they want to talk about their stuff. It's at the forefront of their mind. It's all they know is their stuff, their history, their baggage, their incarceration, their drug use. That's what's at the forefront of their mind. And now, if we can walk into the room, sit down with them, spend time with them, and treat them as normal people, because they are normal people. They're absolutely normal people that have experienced hardship. But if we can do that with them, then it enables them to have a life, and to be seen, and to be heard. And it's in doing that, and seeing their response to it, and experiencing the connection with them, that helps you realize, oh, I need to cut shit, and just be a guy with these people,
Yeah.
and be real, and be honest, share my own stuff, don't act like it's the worst thing in history. But hey, I got some baggage, I got some stuff, and I got some hardship. Yeah, white guy advantage, still got some. And
Yeah.
we could talk another hour about that, but I hope we
Yeah.
don't.
No, well, 100%. But here's the thing, and this is what I was going back. As a coach in this Naked Mind,
Yeah,
you're a minority, because it's mainly women.
You are you are so right about that. I I think it's about 10% or less guys,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And
So does that, like, when you see that, were you like, oh, awesome? Like, or did it not even register, or was it
oh,
just,
it registered right up front. I'm going to notice that stuff. Hey, you're looking at a guy who used to get on the bus on 116th in Harlem, go across the island every morning, and there were many mornings I was the only white guy on the bus.
yeah.
I only wa- and then I would walk through the densest housing projects on Manhattan Island was between my apartment and the facility that I worked at. I would walk right through it, and I would be the only white guy I would see, for a majority of that walk if I walk, which I did 2/3 of the time. But so yeah, I noticed I was in a minority, and to be honest, I thought, wow, there's an opportunity here.
A
Um,
100%.
I saw that as an opportunity. I thought there's not very many of us. And I think I asked you the question: what the hell's going on? Why do guys not? What is it? What's Are we just that reluctant to own our stuff? To step into the realm of acknowledgement of I don't know, what is it?
Yeah, I tend to think it's the stereotypes and the stigma of,
Hmm.
like, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, you're having authentic conversations with the incarcerated and the homeless, and
Yeah,
talking to them like they're real human beings,
sure,
which they are.
they are.
And I think that's hard for most people, especially men, because there's this idea or this thought that I have to be strong and masculine and hold this bravado and be
Mhm.
the, caretaker and leader and all these things. But
Yeah.
really, it's okay to be flawed and authentic and
We we
human.
we are so steeped in that. It's unbelievable, and it's it's not helpful. It is
Mhm.
not helpful. Men do not have an excuse who buy into this. I realize our culture is steeped in it. I realize that's the cooker that we were born in. By the way, that's a big lot of the reason that I so admire what my wife and daughters are doing, daughter-in-law. They are they're pressing in, man, to make it go, to make it work in this culture for a female. It's not just a little bit hard, a little bit daunting. If most men had to face the amount of discouragement and setbacks and obstacles and barriers that women have to face in this society right now, most of us would all be drinking.
Amen, Tim.
There would be,
Amen.
I mean, we're at about 80% regular drinkers now as white educated men making $100,000 or so in this society. I was looking at stats just yesterday. I was doing a presentation for an organization, and I went through those stats, and he was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait, what?" And I said, "That's you and me, man. In any group of business leaders like you and me, 80% of us, 8 out of 10, are regular drinkers, and they self-identify as that anymore, according to a Pew Research Center study done by the Gallup poll just a year ago or so. It's unbelievable. But if we had to face the stuff that women have to face, uh, it would be even greater because we're not used to setbacks. We're so not used to setbacks and obstacles and barriers that we hide them. We act like they're not there. And women don't get that. If you're going to make it, you don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. You're going to have to man up
Yeah.
and be a woman. I mean, if you're not strong enough to do that, you're not going to make it because the odds are stacked against you. And so right now, over the last 10, 15 years, one of the biggest changes for me personally has been making steps into a place where I now realize, oh my goodness, the odds are so great against women, and it has made me my wife's and my daughter's biggest advocate. I mean, I want them to make it because it's such a challenge. I mean, and they are, and they're making it happen. I mean,
Yeah. So, since this is a great segue to talk about the women in your life, so we've talked about your wife. You've been married 36 years. You have
Mhm.
two daughters. Um, well, first off, what's your wife's name?
My wife's name is Susie.
Susie, and your daughters?
My daughter's Lindsay and Bethany, and then my daughter-in-law is Laura. It's my son's wife. Be remiss to leave her out of this conversation because
Yeah.
she's killing it, man. She's a counselor. She started her own practice within, I don't know, about a year and a half after getting her credentials. Now she's approaching 10 employees, making it happen
Wow.
here
I
in
love
Nashville.
that. Yeah. And just so your son, because we're all inclusive in my podcast, what's your son's name?
My son's name is Nathan. Nathan is a writer. Just recently got published a fiction piece of fiction. He's making it happen. So, and one of my main things with Nathan has been, hey man, sell coffee, make sandwiches, do what you have to, but don't give up your passion. Keep doing what you love doing.
Yeah.
And it's always been writing. And he's now 35. He's already published. And in the world of writing and publishing, to get your own book without self-publishing is a major thing. And
Huge deal.
he's there. He's there. And so he's making it happen also. Like, that's got to give him a shot.
Yeah. What's the name of his book?
Nathan Knapp is that's my son, but
Mhm.
Daybook is his most recent. He's written several that just got picked up by a small press overseas in the UK,
Good for
and
him.
he's up for awards for that. So it's
Ah.
I'm so proud. I'm so
Yeah, I was
proud.
gonna say, I mean, so much for you to be proud of with your family and what your wife and your daughters and daughter-in-law is doing and the work you're doing. I mean, just so much positivity in a world that can be as
Oh, oh, but
it can be challenging.
don't think for a second that we all have got it together. Okay, don't let's please don't go there.
No, no, well, listen, I'm sure when I flip it over, there's a mess on the other side.
Well,
Just
we're still figuring it out. I mean, my own drinking history is part of that. Here I am working with the addicted and homeless and leading guys around the corner, breaking addictions, and at the same time, I'm I've got my own issue that's growing and getting worse and worse and worse. And call that hypocrisy? Yeah, yeah, extreme hypocrisy. But um, yeah, made it through. We made it through, and it's an ongoing battle.
what was that? Yeah, what's the story? Like if you were to boil your story down with alcohol and where you're at with it now and the work you're doing for on you, what is your relationship with alcohol? Or what was it and what led you to this naked mind?
So what was it? So starting out prior to 30, major partier, uh, experimenter, drug doer, did all of it.
Hmm.
Party lifestyle, got away with it. I talked about that a little bit earlier. Somehow made it through that without having any major arrest history or convictions, that kind of thing, or addictions. So made it through all that, made a change at marriage, at around 30ish, So I did about 15 years, had never had a drink, about 15 years of heavy
Hmm.
partying, and then about 10, 15 years after getting married of nothing except a gradual increase in consumption, just at special occasions, just certain weekends that became, well, few nights a week, and that became, went to New York, began working with the people that I was working with. I was exposed to severe trauma and incredibly hard stories, incredibly difficult stuff. Vicarious trauma is a thing.
Hmm.
I remember starting that, and after just 6 months of working with those guys, asking my main colleague and best friend there on staff, like, man, what are you doing to stay well? Because this is having an effect on me. And he's like, I'm fine. Well, he's not fine,
Hmm.
but he's still doing what he's doing. He's still good at it. Um, but it had a real impact on me. And I just found it quite easy walking home every evening to just stop by a bar, have a few drinks, and chill, absorb the day, think about the stories, deal with it myself. And that became an everyday thing, which became an every night thing. I spent a lot of time on the streets of New York. Go home, happy hour, go home, have dinner. I'd go back out. I spent a lot of time out and about, interacting and spending time with people on the streets. And I told my wife, about halfway through that time, she's like, "I can't believe you. Why are you staying out there until like midnight?" Most nights. And I'm like, "I'm just hanging out with these guys. I'm just seeing people. Don't worry. I'll get mugged. I'll get beat up. I'll come in bloodied one day. Hey, I'll be all right. Don't sweat it."
I'm
I
sure
knew
she did.
it
I'm
would
sure she
happen. It was going to happen. I don't know how it didn't happen, but I don't know. I was engaging with people and hanging out with them, and there was a certain amount of respect I got for. I was an old white guy that was not afraid of them and
right.
willing to hang out with them, and that was in Harlem. And I remember when we first moved there, I was scared to death to walk down the streets of Harlem, and by that, just a few years in, I was spending several hours of an evening out there. But that was what I was doing, and yeah, I was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and having conversation, and that back to your question, that escalated. It got worse and worse. We hit Nashville. That continued. It's just a nightly thing, and it got to the point. I remember my wife saying, "When's the last time you didn't drink?" And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
So I'd knock off for a night and then feel like I deserved it 2 nights later. And so, try to slow down, realize I wasn't slowing down. It was beginning to affect me in a lot of ways. Very functional though, Tony. I was still out doing my thing, not day drinking. Um, and I think that's where a lot of people get. They get to the place where they're beyond dependency, they're beyond habit, but they still call it a habit.
Mm-hmm.
And a habit is something that we feel like we can break, that's not got a hold on us. And there was a point in time at which I realized, oh, this is making me different. This is affecting a lot of things. And my wife didn't harass me. She loved me through it
Mm-hmm.
amazingly. I just put up with a lot of stuff, but I wasn't a bad drunk. I wasn't crazy. But I was getting to a place that I knew I was really impacted and affected, and I knew it was beginning to affect my health. And I remember a point where she said, "Hey, you're not the guy I married. You're not being you." And that really had an impact. And it was within a day or two or three after that I saw a friend of mine that I didn't know had a drinking issue said, "Hey, I saw this book, This Naked Mind." I actually saw it on Goodreads.
Mm-hmm.
He had read it, and my wife said, "Hey, check this out. Dave read This Naked Mind. What do you think about this?" And I ordered it. And halfway through the book, I set it down. It impacted me this way. I set the book down. I walked in and I told Susie, I said, "I'm hitting pause. I'm just gonna push back. I'm gonna slow down. I'm gonna stop for a while." And I did. I went, I read the rest of the book the next day, but it dramatically impacted me, changed my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and did some things that nothing else that I tried had. I had not been to treatment. All right. I had not done that. I probably needed to, but then again, none of us are going to go to treatment when we're that functional.
Right.
We're just not. We're just not.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I lived it too, and
Yep.
it just, a similar it's very, they say, I mean, I had a stint in AA for 15 months, and that I did that, and it's just like this. They say in AA, it's sneaky and insidious, and it's so true, because it's like all of a sudden it was like, bottles become boxes, became blackouts, which is my story, and
Sure. Sure.
um, and all of a sudden I'm like, when did this happen? Because I'm highly functional.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the people that you serve and volunteer your time with. Like, that's not me. So clearly I'm not that bad. And I was measuring myself against the wrong bar, right? I
Well,
should just be measuring me against me,
exactly.
right? And
You're
so
100%. Yeah.
I
But we don't do that,
no.
drinking, the dependency that is created through alcohol is one of the only diseases, issues. I don't call it a disease because I don't believe it is, but it's one of the only things where a person has a symptom that they do not recognize as being a result of what they're doing. And so we're in denial, and we're not even at denial yet. We're like, what? I'm not denying anything. I'm denying that I'm in denial, you know?
I know it's tricky. It is tricky. So you mentioned this naked mind. Are you an avid reader? Because I always like to ask my podcast guests, like, what are you reading and listening to
You know
that
what?
you would recommend?
You know what? I am not an avid reader. I read, and I read more than I've ever read. What I do now, my wife read 104 books last year.
Wow.
She's
Oh,
an,
seriously?
she's another level, but she gets up at about 6 a.m. and reads for 2 hours every day, so she kills it.
Yeah.
I don't do that. You know, she's read 13 books this year. I've read 4,
Mhm.
5. You know, I try to keep something going. As I get about halfway through a book, I'm like, I need something to read. I got to get something else going.
Yep.
And so what I tend to read, Tony, is stuff that's in my interest. You know, right now, I'm very interested in the mind body connection. I'm very interested in emotional regulation. I'm really interested in intellectual openness. I don't want to stand on all my decisions so staunchly. I've learned, you know, you need to hold your shit lightly because it runs and it anyway. So those are my fields of interest. So my reading right now has to do with those areas and
Mhm.
those things. And so I also want my reading to inform what I'm doing. You know, anything that gives me a better grasp on the mind body connection and how our trauma and how our issues in our past impact our thinking now and our personality as such. That stuff I'm very interested in because it's the stuff that you and I, we use this stuff on a daily basis. And if there's anything I've learned, is that we're not in control. I got a website I'll tell you about here in a minute, but my byline on it is control is a goal. I
Mm.
need to change it because as complete bullshit. it's, we're there are so many things that we can't control, and I know that's true, but we can get a heck of a lot better at regulating our emotions, at
Mhm.
understanding the impact our subconscious has on our lives, how it is the driver in so many ways, in areas that we don't even give thought to consciously, but there's our subconscious just driving the boat, man. And anything that I can read that gives me a better insight and better information and a better method for dealing with any of that and understanding it, then I want that, you know. And so when it comes to something I'm interested in, yeah, I'm an avid reader. Um, but one of a life changing book for me personally, when I began to look at my own trauma and my own past, was The Body Keeps the Score.
Mhm.
Vanderkolk, I think,
Yep.
the writer. I mean, that's been out there a while. That's impacted a lot of people. But that was eye opening. That was before I was coaching.
Yeah.
But I was very cognizant of the fact of what's in that book because of what I was seeing, and the guys I was dealing with. But Gabor Mate has done so much work on trauma.
Yeah.
uh Man, the myth of normal is I think one of the last ones that I read. But he's
Mm.
also done a lot of stuff, and that book is impacting. So but in there's another book that I wrote it down somewhere. I wanted to mention it. In the realm of hungry ghosts, if you work with addiction and you work with people on the streets and that area, you want to understand addiction a bit better, that is a great read. I, there are some movies that you say that movie was something else, and someone says, well, would you recommend it? And you say, well, not really.
Mhm.
Because it's tough. There are hard things involved in addiction
Yeah.
and trauma and traumatic past that are difficult. But I've always struggled with personality tests and all of that stuff
Mhm.
that to me, can be borderline, like, I mean, so much of the personality stuff, like the horoscope. I mean, it's almost like, oh, born in a certain month, or you have this personality or this, and then this is what you're going to do. And I, every personality test that I've taken, I've scored vastly different on.
Yeah.
And the last Enneagram or whatever that was, I think I finished equally in 4 quadrants in 4 different categories. I'm like, well, this is, come
You're
on.
you're a mutt in the
I'm a,
Enneagram world.
yeah, I'm a split person. That's what I am. I've got 4 of them. So anyway, but personality is a permanent is a recent book I read. I gleaned something from, and then breaking the habit of being yourself. Joe Dispenza. That was a good read. I gleaned from that. Um, um,
Good
lose your,
Lord.
you know.
You're filling up my I'm writing these down, Tim.
Well, I mean,
These are good.
breaking the
Um,
habit of being yourself was impactful for me because it basically lays out the premise that who you were is one person, who you are is another, but who you're going to be, who you're headed toward is another person, and your future self, is what you need to be planning for. You need to think in terms of your future self and where you want to be and where you're headed. And in that respect, we hold all the cards when it comes to our personality. You want to be an extrovert? Well, start doing stuff. Get out there, right?
right.
Then
Yeah,
we use that as an excuse. Well, I'm an introvert. I isolate. I stay at home and drink. No, wait a minute. It doesn't have to be that way. So
right.
that stuff helps me. And I talked about openness. I read a simple little book it was great for me because it opened. Adam Grant did a book called Think Again.
Yeah. On my
That
list.
I mean, I don't know where it rates up there with people as far as popularity, but I thought it was good.
Pretty
It
good.
just challenged my thinking, and it says, hey, hold your stuff lightly.
Yeah.
In fact, hold it lightly enough that you pursue other thoughts and other people's opinions and seek to understand why they believe what they do. And that's a guy here in Nashville, David Dark, did did a book recently called "We Become What We Normalize." And in this age of political polarity and crazy, that was a good book for me. I
Mm.
really identified with that. Anyway, so yeah, so I avidly read what I'm interested in right now. You
I
bet.
love that. You mentioned a website. So where, if people want to connect with you and continue this conversation, see the work you do, where can they find you? What's your website? Where and
Um,
what social platforms are you on?
I don't. I'm on. Yeah, there's some social platforms, whatever. But there's timknappcoaching.com. Timknappcoaching.com. That's where I am. You can see a little bit about me there.
Hmm.
Look me up. But here's the main thing. I realize, as I know you do, that the hardest place to get to, I think once you're at the place that you're willing to ask for help or consult somebody or talk about your issue, you're about 80% of the way. If you can get to that place, you're at a good place, because I've walked many, many people through a myriad of types of addictions, from meth to X to fentanyl to opioids, coke, you name it. And I
Mm.
watched them, I walked with them through change and seen their lives radically change for the better. And it's an amazing thing. But I realized that pulling the trigger on that call is very difficult. So one thing I want to throw out there, anybody that watches this and they see this, um, call me. It's a free call.
Yeah.
We can talk. I can throw some suggestions out there. Maybe you don't need help. But if you call, then we can talk about potential next steps and what you can do, what you can pursue where you are, what we can pursue together. But it's making that call that is pivotal, for people. And I
Absolutely.
with working with guys coming out of jail, I'll say this and I'll quit in that area, but the recidivism rate for across the board is about 80+%. that guys will be rearrested within 2 to 3 years. Of the guys that I worked with, my number was like below 15% recidivism.
Mm.
And the reason is I did show up for them. I did care. We did talk through a lot of stuff, but here's the thing. They uniquely qualified themselves by saying, I need help. Hey, because I didn't get to talk to anybody or work with anybody on the outside after, post release, I never got to work with anybody unless they called me. I couldn't call them. Hell, they didn't have a phone or any way to contact them. So the only people I ever worked with, and it was about 100 a year, for the last 8 years. But if they didn't call, I didn't get to work with them. But if they called, they were uniquely qualified because they had already crossed that major threshold of saying, I want help, I need help, I'm asking you for it, and I'm willing to do it. And that put people in a different category. And that's why the success was there. Among people that are willing to say, I need help me, they got a shot.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, hands down.
Mhm.
Hands down. Well, we could keep talking, but I got a hockey game tonight. So
Yeah, you got things to do.
this has been so awesome, Tim, to spend this hour with you. And I applaud all the work you're doing and will continue to do, not only with others, but on yourself, and having that growth mindset and knowing we're always a work in progress. So it's been such a joy to get to know you and continue to stay connected
Hey,
to one another.
really, really nice to hang out with you, Tony. Great to see you again. And I appreciate what you're doing, what you got going on.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. All right, if you guys are looking to find me, I am not hard to find. kwings.com for my hockey world, mindfulnesselevated.com, and Tony Will Coaching on the coaching side of my life. And then I'm only on 3 social platforms. That's all I can handle. LinkedIn and Facebook at Tony Lentini Will, and I'm on Instagram at I'm Tony Will. And until next time.